mind your eyelids when you try and fail to fall asleep. The vicious retort sitting on the tip of my tongue retreated as the horror of what he'd seen hit me like a deluge of 16th century musket balls. Stowe, bleeding, dying. Did I want to see that? The mere thought of it made my stomach pitch, and Jameson had known, must have known, what it would do to me. Unlike me, he didn't have a choice. And for the first time, I began to understand a little bit of what it must be like to be Jameson Drake. His words weren't ones of warning, they were words of experience. He'd seen things he clearly never wanted to, things he could never forget. Once again, my anger began to wane, but I couldn't have that. I needed something to grasp onto other than my sadness. At least tell me what you saw. I changed the demand into a question at the last moment, hoping to garner at least a slight amount of cooperation from Jameson. Not that I deserved it after the way I jumped all over him. God, I was a mess. The door burst open, and a harried-looking Jem walked into the room, with Noah and Stowe on her heels. Fucking hell! I can't believe you left in the middle of the funeral like that. I was freaking out. I knew I was supposed to respond to her, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from Stowe. He was here, in one giant, sized piece and offering me a cautious smile. I itched to leap up from the floor and throw myself into his arms, like I had that day in front of the spa. He'd held my weight like it was nothing, his strong arms comforting, the brush of his beard against my cheek pleasurable. But as relieved as I was to see him, I wasn't that girl from 2 weeks ago anymore. At the hands of Grace Morrow and her collector cohorts, I'd lost everything. Whitehurst Antiques was in shambles. My home had been reduced to a pile of ashes, and I swallowed around the mammoth lump in my throat. And I'd been forced to say a final goodbye to my dad. Much like my shop, I was nothing but a shell of my former self. Pieces of my soul were strewn all over the floor, and no amount of super adhesive would put them back together again. There was nothing left. Nothing but a numb kind of heartache mixed with the uncompromising need for vengeance. Adele? Jem uttered my name softly as she fell to her knees by my side. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun, completely concealing the array of colors she loved to flaunt. You look pale. Did something happen? I'm a redhead. I'm always pale. Around my snarky reply, I shot a questioning look at Jameson. He shook his head slightly, and I narrowed my eyes. Was he seriously going to keep his vision from the rest of the Psych Squad? Jem looked between me and her brother, frowning. What's going on with you two? I waited for Jameson to explain, but his luscious lips appeared glued together, so I said vaguely, Oh, you know, the usual. She let out an exasperated huff. Why did you even come here? Pushing up from the floor, I ignored the spinning sensation my movements caused and put my gloves back on, all the while avoiding Mr. Hot and Frowny's gaze. I needed to talk to Jameson, but we're done now and I'm leaving. I could have sworn there were weights strapped to my ankles as I took those first few steps toward the door. Leaving was the last thing I wanted after Jameson's ominous declaration. The need to stay and figure out a way to protect Stowe was as instinctual as breathing. I couldn't bear the idea of him hurt. Or worse. But I'd seen firsthand what could happen while attempting to prevent an undesirable future. After Jameson's vision of Sheila the succubus collector convincing George to sell his half of our antique business to her, I'd taken things into my own hands. I'd listened to Andrea when she assured me everything would be all right if she purchased George's interest instead. And that had ended up being the biggest mistake of my life. Andrea. Her name alone made me shudder in hatred and disgust. She was the reason Grace